See, it's connecting to YouTube. Let's see if it's taking us to the 100. Yes, it is. So we're live, my brother. Yes, sir. Entrepreneur Chamber Podcast is back live.
Live. Oh, okay, we live. Entrepreneur Chamber Podcast.
Hmm?
We're live and direct. This is a
Yes,
live
we
one.
are.
This is a live episode. So to all our constituents, to all our members, to all our listeners, everyone who takes the time to tune into the Entrepreneur Chamber Podcast, we want to say thank you. And
Yep.
today's is another show. My brother and my brother IJUST,
Oh,
myself.
peace, Sos. What's going on, my brother?
What's going on, baby? Myself,
Yes, sir.
Sosa. We're gonna get together and we're gonna build. We're gonna build today. This is a building session. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we have a building session. Today's one of those building sessions. We also have some very exciting news. We're right now in the works of giving you a new experience. The Entrepreneur Chamber podcast. We're always trying to tweak it, make it better, make it more valuable, bring more value to you, our members and our listeners. And one of which is we're going to start focusing on exactly what you guys need or what is needed to go from being at a job to get to self-employed. All right, we're going to take you to that journey step by step instead of skipping right to right to
Entrepreneur.
instead of skipping right to entrepreneur.
Right.
We're gonna break down the steps because a Winston, I Justin, I myself, we're not totally an entrepreneur quad, so we're learning as well.
Right.
So we want to help you guys win the journey because what's happening and what I realize, what I've seen that's happening, and what my brother I just see that's happening is that yes, we are becoming more financially aware. We are becoming more financially woke, but we're still not putting the proper practices into play. We're still not using the information to our advantage. We're kind of just using the information, and we're getting caught up in the flash. There's an old saying, "Flash, no cash." We're
The,
kind of
the, the
getting caught up in that.
lifestyle, the,
We're
the
getting caught up
lifestyle
in the
portion of it.
lifestyle and not the
Mhm.
actual what it actually is. And the reason why I say that, there's a study that shows that by 2053, there's a fear that the wealth gap between whites and blacks, the blacks actually will be down to zero.
Mm.
That right now we're only at like $30,000 that we
Yes.
leave our families,
Yes.
or twenty eight
Hmm.
thousand or 30 that we leave our families. There's a study out right now that they're saying that in 2053 they fear that we'll be leaving nothing to our family if we keep going the way that we're going. So this is a big reason why we do this on Entrepreneur Chamber Podcast, is because we're trying to penetrate that problem. We're trying to be agents of change for that particular problem. And another thing that we really want to do is listen. Winston and we have unique backgrounds, right? I just he's
Jamaican, man. Big up to
Jamaican
all the
background.
yard man. Jamaican. Yes,
Big up
sir.
to all
Yes,
my
sir.
Jamaicans.
Yes.
Big up. I myself, I have a Cuban background, Cuban American, and so we really want to start focusing in this podcast because there's a lot of great brothers and sisters in the Caribbean that have trudged, and trekked their, all the atrocities and all the what the poverty,
Adversities.
yeah, all the
Poverty.
right that they face in their own home country, and they come here to the United States, to hopefully live that American dream or following that American dream, and they get to it, man. There's a lot of great brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, men, that have great jobs that have gone from the job world, that have gone from their country to a job to starting their own business, and we
Now,
want to start high.
if
Yeah,
I may, so it's because you're touching on something I think that is very important because, like you're saying, those that come from the Caribbean. And once again, shout out to all our Caribbean
All the
brothers and
Caribbeans,
sisters.
what that Haiti, Dominican Republic,
Yes,
PR,
sir.
you know, and
So,
listen,
yeah,
all our
yes,
brothers,
sir.
yes, all our brothers and sisters.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So when you're coming from that level of extreme poverty, and then you come to America, because I have cousins that did, coming from Jamaica and then coming to America, remember in the late 80s, early 90s, it was Jamaicans have tree jobs, like they work tree jobs. Who worked more jobs than, those from the Caribbean, South America, than those folks. And when you come from that level of poverty, your next level up is employee to the point you were just making. And then they go from employee to being self-employed. And that just goes to the area that you were saying that we're focusing on. Those that come from, whether it's extreme poverty or, the conditions that are set here in America or wherever you're at in the Caribbean, that you going from that status to employee to then being self-employed is a quantum leap. And to me, and in my opinion, that may be the hardest leap from any of the four quadrants. So going back to what you're saying, Sos, when us as aspiring entrepreneurs, whether you're black, white, at this point, it really doesn't matter. It's based off of the knowledge and the education that you bring a good perspective when you say there's four quadrants. And this is what we need to understand, people, because to your point, Sos, you hear a lot of people, and I hear a lot of people say, yeah, I'm just going to be an entrepreneur. Well, okay, what about being self-employed? What about being a business owner before you become an entrepreneur? It's like people think it's just from employee to entrepreneur. And there may be some that make that leap and bound and that quantum leap. But for most of us laymen's who are, of regular status per se, quote unquote, you have to understand there are four quadrants to how you generate revenue. So whether that's A, being an employee, B, being self-employed, C, being a business owner, and then D, being an entrepreneur slash investor. So when you say that, Sos, I think saying going from employee to self-employed is a great area for us to focus on. And the people we're focusing on, once again, is that demographic in general, but specifically our Black and Latino brothers of the Caribbeans. Whether you're here in America or whether you're watching us now live on YouTube from Jamaica, you're watching us now live on YouTube from Cuba, from Dominican Republic, from Haiti. We're focusing on you because we are of Caribbean background and we've made that quantum leap from employee to being self-employed. So, what are your thoughts on that, Sos?
I think I think first and foremost, just to build, just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. First of all, we feel that in the Caribbean, this is a market that we don't get highlighted nearly
Right.
enough. A lot of times we just get bunched in with with black people, Jamaicans, Haitians, whatever, black people, right?
Right.
Cubans, Puerto Rican. I mean, we just get bunched in with Spanish people.
All in
Sometimes
one bucket.
Right, and sometimes we don't realize, man, so much that's come from the Caribbean, so much culture, so much things that are part of our everyday culture that come from the Caribbean. We don't even realize that have been brought from our perspective countries that aren't indoctrinated here in the United States that kind of becomes tradition. So we want to highlight that because we feel as though that's a market that listen, there's a bunch of Caribbean great brothers that we all know from all types of backgrounds. But I don't. But we want to be the podcast that highlights that. We want to be the voice
Speak
for
on it,
that
brother.
podcast of the people that are trying to get into business, and we want to be that voice. We want to be that safe place where you can come, you could tune in, and especially if you're from the Caribbean. Now, first of all, I want to make it clear: this is for everybody. This podcast is for
Yes.
everybody who's trying to get into
Everybody.
business, trying to be an entrepreneur.
Great
But
point, Sos.
we do want to focus on our Caribbean brothers, and brothers and sisters, because we feel as though there's so much there to offer, and we need to start highlighting our own people. We need to start highlighting the people that we all grow up with, from people from our cultures, from our backgrounds, from our countries, and start highlighting them. So and therefore we can start changing the narrative. There's so much negativity, man. We just want to start highlighting positive. We want to be a source
Yes.
of if you want to get into business, tune into this podcast. And especially if you're from the Caribbean, man, there's some pride here. There's some brothers that are totally with y'all, and we want y'all to be with us so we can make this thing grow and kind of help each other get to the next level. Now, when you're talking about
And as you say that, and again, it just brings it all back to, the overall topic that you bring to the table of when you say go to the next level. So where are you at? And then what is the next level? So if you're an employee, then the next level is self-employed. If you're self-employed, then the next level is business owner. If you're a business owner, then your next level progressively should be as an entrepreneur or an investor. And you always highlight that during every podcast episode, so that we're all striving to be that entrepreneur. And I personally am one who have dibble and dabble between being an employee and self-employed. But here's the nuance to that. I've been an employee of a business that I created versus being an employee of another person's business, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. We all need a starting point, and this is all based off of how do you generate revenue? And at the end of the year, how do you report that revenue to the IRS? It's really what it all boils down to. How do you report that as a W-2 employee, as a person who's self-employed, and you're going to have your Schedule C and other type of forms. I'm not going to get that deep in the woods because I'm not a tax expert. But if you are looking for like a tax expert, check out podcast episode 11, and you'll see we have Miss Phyllis Johnson from PKJ Consultings, and she is a CPA. So if you're watching us live now on YouTube, thank you for tuning in to the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast. For all of our members of the Entrepreneur Chamber Facebook group, once again, you have co-host SOSA, and I'm the other co-host, IJUST. And you're now tuned in to the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast. And as my brother SOSA was alluding to, about us focusing on those in the Caribbean and people in general who fit in the space of being an employee who's striving to be self-employed. So let me propose a question to you, Sos, as we're building and kind of focusing on that area. What are your thoughts on a person, or can a person be an employee and be self-employed at the same time? Is that even possible?
Of course, that's possible. Without a doubt. You know what, too? I think too, we're for all listeners, remember to listen to. We're talking about 4 quadrants. I think first and foremost, we got to understand, what exactly we're talking about when we say 4 quadrants. There's a book. Well, first of all, there's a theory. Just breaking down this theory. There's a theory that that we're basically rolled in 4 quadrants. There's a whole quadrant theory, not only on business to not only like as a worker or employee to trying to get the self-employed, trying to be an owner. That there's that quadrant. That's the quadrant that IJUST is talking about, where you start off as an employee, then hopefully you can get the self-employed. Well, basically you're in 4 quadrants. You're either an employee, you're either self-employed, you're a business owner, or an investor, right? Some can be all 3, right? But there's no investor that's going to be an employee. All right. So if you're an investor, you're only going to be owner, self-employed, and investor, right? But if you're if you're an employee, you actually can be all 4, to be honest with you, right? Or at least you could at least start dabbling in, but you could definitely get into self-employed. And the way
if I may, so when you say dabble in, what are they dabbling in? Just for those listeners that may not, because that's an important point you just made.
Right.
When you say you can dabble in. So if you could just give that a little bit more life to, because I follow you. Trust me, I'm walking with you. But for those that may not walk with us at that speed that you're building on, when you say dibble and dabble from an employee, what do you mean? Like as far as the next step, dibble and dabble, employee, self-employed? If you would elaborate on that, please.
Well, realistically, it could happen. Now,
Hmm.
I wouldn't recommend it because it's going to be, I think it's going to be a little too difficult, but you actually could do it. You could,
Hmm.
you could be at your job and you could start a side business. You could start a side business while you're working. To be honest with you, if you're trying to get into be self-employed, that's probably your best route is while you're working, create a business that you can start to that can start to grow, that hopefully it can grow at a point that you don't need to be at your job anymore. So you could actually do that. Now, you could actually, right? So now if you're into that, now if you get good at that, you could actually create that business, right? That side business. If you understand scaling, right? You could hire somebody to run that business for you while you're still working. So technically you self-employed because certainly you are working. You created a business, so you are an owner, and you had someone working that business for you while you're working. So you did so you can create that. Then you can
So,
maybe
so
make.
that answers the question when, you can
Well,
do
yeah,
both
just
at
I
the
want to
same
elaborate a
time.
little
That
further.
answers that question.
Yeah, I want to
Yep.
elaborate a little further. Then you
Go
can
ahead.
then you can actually go. You could actually, you could save up some of your money or take some of your 401 or whatever you want to do. Go buy an investment property. So really, as an employee, you have touched all those quadrants, right? But here's
Mhm.
the thing: that's when you're starting out, right? But now once you get into that, you've mastered the owner and the investor. You're not going to be an employee no more because I mean, unless you want to, unless you're bored and you got nothing to do, you want to sit there and work,
you don't got
right?
no-
You can't.
you don't got nothing else better to do, but
Right,
go
right.
to work every day.
So beginning, you actually can do that. And I just wanted to touch more about this whole quadrant thing. So the four quadrants is a book by Robert Kiyos, which is the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. All right. So that's where basically a lot of this discussion is coming from. Then there's another book that's called like the quadrant of like time management, or it's by Stephen Covey. His is more like the quadrant. It's like a time management quadrant. Then there's another quadrant. I don't know the author of this book because I never read this book, but I do know the book exists. It's a quadrant for help for living, basically, which kind of because like I said, there is actually a quadrant theory on not just finances, but a lot of different subjects that kind of all relate and kind of somehow kind of all kind of circle
Well,
back to
I,
kind
I
of
think
finance.
so. So it's because I'm one that knows in my mind that all things are inclusive.
Right,
We're here, we're in the same, on the same planet. So all things are inclusive in some shape, form, or fashion.
right. Yep. So if that
So
answers the question, I would say yes, you 100%. I would suggest that if you are trying to be self-employed, I would suggest, listen, if you're at a job, that's the best place to try to start a job because you already have a guaranteed income, right? And then, you could kind of start that on the side. Hopefully, then, now your success is going to be predicated on how you structure it or how the effort and time you put into it. But there certainly is an opportunity that you can be an employee and start a business at the same time. As a matter of fact, if you're trying to get into full-time self-employment, become a business owner, I suggest that if you're ready at a job, that's actually the route that you take.
yeah, and I think that's an excellent point that you highlight there. And once again, for those that are watching us live on YouTube, thank you for watching the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast with host Sosa and host Just. So think about it like this: some people, have no other choice but to keep their job. So let's just say your family depends on your benefits. You have a job with great benefits. So at that point, I may need to keep my job because of the medical benefits. I don't know, you may have a spouse that's sick and you can't afford, or the marketplace insurance policy may not be suitable for you and your family. So therefore, you may have to remain an employee um, prior to starting being a self-employed person, meaning full time. And I think also within that way of thinking, so you're touching on two foods. So yes, you can do both at the same time. You can, and I would recommend that people start off the way that you just said, start off being from an employee to being self-employed. But there's another route and another nuance to that. And that's creating a business that you may have to work in yourself and you be the first employee. You know what I'm saying? So let's just say, for example, I have a job. I go there from 7 to 3. Then I have a cleaning business such as JMD Janitorial. And I leave my 7 to 3. I get off at 3 o'clock, and then I go clean a building or two starting at 5 o'clock under an LLC. Now, I have started an LLC and I'm an employee, and I'm also an employee for my business because I didn't hire somebody else to go do that cleaning for me. I went and did the cleaning myself. So in the instance of what Brother Sosa is building on, I think it's very important that you understand, first and foremost, where do you fit in as being an employee? What are your needs? What are your concerns? What is your condition as an employee? What are your goals as far as your business? Do you need $500 a month? Maybe, you just want to be self-employed to or start a business to help pay for your child's college tuition or private school. And you're not looking to, scale up at the moment. And then you may be one who you're looking to scale up at the moment. You may start an online business that you can kind of do virtually. So it really depends on where you're at, SOS. A person understanding that and what are their goals. And I agree with you that that is a good place to start. From your job, create a business, and then whether you're going to scale that job up or you're going to do the actual work yourself and then become an employee within being self-employed. So yeah, I think that was a great way of articulating it, SOS, of letting people know that you can do both. Yep, that you
You know
can
what,
do
too? I
both.
wanted to give you like a little pushback, because you had said something that kind of had me thinking when you said, well, some people, they need, their health insurance or whatever and things like that. So, but my question is, because I hear people say stuff like that. I
I've I've heard somebody say that. That's what made me think about
I've heard
bringing
people
it up.
say that. I've also
That's
heard
not
people.
necessarily how I feel. That was the
Right.
way
Well,
I
I just
heard
wanted to give
somebody
some
say it.
pushback on that, right? So because I've heard that too. I've actually,
Mhm.
so my question to that person would be, okay, but if you made enough income, right, that you can pay for your own health insurance and have more freedom, because now you're not, now you're at your own business instead of someone else's business, right? You're trying to make your own dream instead of trying to build somebody else's dream, right? Wouldn't that, like, would you still do that? So then I like to ask that question to people, like,
Yes.
would you still do that? Because I've also heard people tell me that they don't want to get into business because they get like social security. I don't know what they're getting, like,
Like on a
not so,
fixed
but they get
income.
a fixed income,
Yeah, they're
right?
on a fixed income.
They're
Right,
on a
right, right.
fixed income, or they're on
Hmm.
disability or something. Oh man, I don't want
Hmm.
to self-employed because I don't want to lose the fixed income. So my question to
Right.
you is, okay, so how much do you make on that fixed income? Whatever, $2,000, $3,000. So if you could start a business that made $6,000, are you not going to do that because you want to get this guaranteed $3,000? I
Right,
mean,
right, right.
I think sometimes too, like, I think sometimes we get almost so dependent on our jobs. We get so dependent on that paycheck that we
Yes.
don't realize that once you get cut off, man, we don't know what to do because we're so dependent. It's like, it's like a newborn baby on that milk. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
if you know what I mean,
Hmm.
if all they do is, on their mother's chest, right? Just imagine if
Which is nothing wrong with if you breastfeed,
Not, well, first of all, I have a big theory. I encourage, if you can breastfeed, I encourage everyone to breastfeed. I think there's so many studies that show their brain activity is so much healthier if you do breastfeed. But that's a topic for another day. But I will say though that what happens is, man, we sometimes get caught up and we're so dependent, and it's just like I would get that if you took that newborn off that nipple, that the baby would start going hysterical, going crazy, wouldn't know what to do. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. We're so dependent on our jobs that if they take that away, that's why there's homelessness in this country. That's why there's so many people that are living under the poverty line. There's one out of one out of
Allow
like
me.
7 kids are like undernourished. I mean, these are things that we're doing, and so if those are the numbers, then why are we so dependent on this job? You know what I mean? Why can't we just take the same faith that we're putting in that job, we could put into ourselves?
Now, and I think again that's an excellent point because think about it almost like this. If you have somebody that's a baby, they're breastfeeding, the next progression from that is a bottle. Then the next progression from the bottle is a sippy cup. Next progression from a sippy cup is normally a cup with a straw. And then at some point, you're looking to just, be on the cup. So it's that comfort zone that you're speaking about. How are we comfortable with leaving how you naturally would intake your milk from the breast and then going to the sippy cup, from the sippy cup? Those are quadrants. Those are all quadrants as well. So yeah, pardon me. I think that's something else, that adds on to exactly what you're saying. So, as far as those four quadrants, I think that's something important to note. So once again, this is why people will tune into our podcast, because if you're one who thinks, why should I leave my 9 to 5, my W-2? Listen, Sosa, I just told you why. And this is why you should listen to the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast. So that's why they need to tune into us, because we're going to answer those questions for them. And those are the people that we want to reach, specifically from the Caribbean. We want to let you know that you can make that quantum leap. And the only thing that's preventing you from doing that is the self-doubt, or the comfortability. So if it's not self-doubt, then it's the comfortability. But it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it the comfortability that breeds the self-doubt, or is it the self-doubt and then, the comfortability of receiving that, check? Because it's not even guaranteed that you're going to get Social Security, because, according to how laws may be passed in the future, they're looking to privatize Social Security. So which means that that's no guarantee that even you're going to get Social Security. So what do you have in lieu of that in case something, planning for the worst happens? So
and
I think that's important to know.
And I also think that we have to start thinking, because I think what's going on too, especially on social media, we're seeing all these people that are giving all these jewels and giving all these things, and then so what's happening is, that's great, I love it, I encourage it, don't stop, right? But I think what's going on is we're getting like, kind of, because we're this is like new information to us. It's like kind of like a new baby with new information, right? And then sometimes you go a little crazy when you get the information. So I think what's going on though is we're seeing all these examples, right? And we're getting caught up in the fantasy of it, and we're trying to skip steps. We're trying to go, oh man, I'm trying to go be an entrepreneur. Well, you don't even understand business. You have, this is something that you gotta train your mind to start thinking this way. If you think that you're just gonna be an employee and then the next day you're gonna be this successful person, chances are you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're not taking the step. You're trying to skip steps, and that's the reason why so many businesses fail within the first 1 to 3 years, because they don't understand.
Probably somewhere in the ballpark of 75% of businesses fail.
And that's what happens. A lot of that is because we're not doing our due diligence in the beginning, right? And yeah, of course, listen, there is a learning curve. Listen, a lot of us have jumped into business. We don't know what we're doing. We kind of figure it out as we go. That's great.
All by the seat of your pants.
Right. You could do that, but your chances of success are a lot less. We have to start understanding that you can do that. Listen, I did it that way, right? But, man, listen, I can't tell you why I succeeded, only by the grace of God, so far. It's really only by the grace of God, but I was really doing it the wrong way. Right. So that's what a lot of us do. We're doing things the wrong way, and we're getting information and we're taking it as Bible. I think in our communities, man, Black and Spanish people, man, we go with what other people say and we take it as Bible instead of getting the information for ourselves, discerning the information, dissecting the information and coming to our own conclusion and our own thought process on it. And then so we take and there's a lot of dreams. There's a lot of dreams out here getting killed by other people. There's a lot of dreams, a lot of hopes, a lot of aspirations that are getting killed by other people, by really the inequality.
Well, so if I may, I mean, because what you're saying is very important. And I often, without rudely interrupting you, just want to focus on certain things because when you say it and you move forward with it, I think some of the listeners need to understand exactly what you're saying because think about that sheep mentality. This is how you were building on, from social media, what they put in front of our face. And that's really going back to the premise of what you were saying in the beginning because that's so important to understand being able to think for yourself and not do the group thinking or know when to do the group thinking and when not to do the group thinking. And doing that independent research is very, very important. Part of that independent research is reaching out to people who've been in business longer than you, who know, been through the ups and the downs, been through the famines and the feasts, and you can pick their brain and they can help guide you to that learning curve. But once you're in the curve, that's where the adversity is and the education is. And then you have to learn from that adversity because one of the greatest educational tools is adversity, So I think that's important for the listeners, the members of the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast and the Facebook group. I think that's important for them to understand when you're articulating that. So that part of the misnomers, as they're known as, is that, you can just go from A to Z. Well, what about B? What about C? What about D? What about E? Like you have to go through these steps. Yes, anything is possible. I'm a believer of anything is possible, but I'm also one that is realistic and practical. And I understand that I have to pull from what's possible to what's and draw it and drop it in the bucket of what's probable. And then I work with the probability of what I came from, which was the possibility. So, like hope and wish, these are things that are possible to me. Like, so how do I take that vision of the possible and then make that probable? So, those are the steps. Those are the steps that you have to go through. Those are knowing and understanding that first and foremost, there are, not to get too stuck on quadrants, because again, that's just another label, but it's real. And understanding where do you fit in and at the current situation as an employee, and where do you want to go? And then based off of that information, how do you do the independent research and not just get stuck in the possibility, but how is that going to then go to probability? And then once it's probable, how do you make that actual, and how do you make that what was possible realized? Because the realization, we think of things that are real, it's tangible, something I can touch. When I say possible, I think of things that are theoretical. So these are things that are just in theory. So how do I take what's in theory and then make it real to know whether it's going to work for me or not? So it's no different than what you're saying. So it's helping people to form logic. Like these are all things, when you just said what you said, it makes me think of connecting the dots and thinking in the realm of logical versus everything is just possible. Yes, every and anything is possible, people.
Yeah,
Let's not
yeah,
get it twisted. If you're a
100%.
dreamer, yes, anything is possible. Well, how do you make what's possible and be real with it and practical with it, and then translate that to what's probable, and then take what's probable to make it a realization? So,
I
what
mean,
are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know how to really answer that, but I can.
It's and I'm not even saying answer it. It's more like just what are your
Yeah,
thoughts on it? Like, do
yeah.
you
I mean,
agree
my
with
thoughts
that
of.
or?
I mean, my thoughts is like kind of like a lot with what you're saying is like basically like kind of it's like kind of putting in like layman's terms, like if you're like an employee, right, and you're trying to be self-employed, well, you're gonna have to kill yourself, right? You basically have to break. You're gonna have to kill yourself to the employee kind of thinking, right? You're gonna have to like kind of you're gonna have to change. You're gonna have to kind of rethink your whole way of an employee to be self-employed, right? So it's kind of like you almost have to forget everything that you learn as an employee to try to learn to be a self-employed. Then when you're self-employed, you got to kind of you got to
So,
kind of
let me ask you a
you got to
question.
do.
Give an example of how one of our listeners, how can they do that? Because also, not to just say what's wrong with our community, because there's a lot of things that are right with our community, but that's often what eludes us. It's the how. Like often people know what to do, so they know why they want to do it. They find their why. We spoke about this before, but it's the how. How do they execute and reverse engineer the way they've been taught and trained for 20 years, of being an employee? How how did you do that?
Got to listen.
How did you fix your mind
It's
to get
about
out of
reading.
that off
It's
that
about
hamster
reading. It's
wheel?
about reading a lot of books. It's about making a decision first of all in your mind from the beginning that this is what you're going after. This is what you're pursuing. And if that's what you're pursuing, man, go get yourself some books. There's plenty of podcasts. I mean, we're in the age now in this world where everything, all our information is right at our fingertips. Anything we want
Yes.
to know and learn is right at our fingertips. So a lot of that is just start flooding your mind with that kind of information. The more and more, it's like when you go to church, right? The more and more you hear God's word. That word is going to penetrate you sooner or later. It's going to penetrate you. It's just the way it works, right? And it's the same thing here. You keep feeding your brains with anything. You keep feeding your brains like the Pavlov theory. You know what I mean? You repetition. It's going to start to penetrate after a while. And then you got to go seek mentors, go seek people that can help you, go get with like-minded people. Whatever you're trying to do, go. If you're trying to be self-employed, go get yourself some. Go talk to people that are self-employed. And then as I was saying before, I mean, then you want kind of like you got to like almost kind of erase your brain from employee to get to self-employed. And then if you want to be an owner, you got to kind of erase that. You got to change all that thinking to become an owner.
So when you say change that thinking, you're talking about from being self-employed to being the
Yeah,
owner. As
because
you
yeah,
go
because
to
when
the
you're
next
yeah,
progression,
because
you may have to change the way you think as
you're
being
definitely going to have to.
self-employed to be
You're
okay.
definitely going to have to because you're an
That's an
employee.
excellent point.
Because you're an employee, you're an employee. You're working for somebody. Now you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
work for yourself. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
forget about that. And then now you're working for yourself. But when you're self-employed, you really just created another job. You're not really,
Yes.
you ain't really created something. You basically you're the success of that job. That's why when you start a business, yeah, 9 times out of 10 to answer your question earlier, yeah, you are gonna have to work it at the beginning. I mean, unless you understand scaling at a high level and you can just go ahead and start it off right from the rip. If you could do that, man, you 10 steps ahead of the game. If you could do that,
Yes.
if you could
Yes.
do that, so I encourage if you can do that. But 9 times out of 10, it's not as successful unless you really understand how to scale, right? So so then you got to kind of like right. So like I said, you kind of created another job for yourself. So now if you want to be an owner, where now you're not at that job, you're not present. You don't have to be like the success of that job isn't predicated on your own work, right?
Right. On you
Only
physically being there.
on you physically being there,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
predicated on your direction, on
Yes.
the
Yes.
system
Yes.
that you
Yes. Yes.
created,
Yes. Yes.
right? But
Yes.
creating a job and creating a system are two different things. When you're self-employed, you created a job. When you're an
Mm-hmm.
owner, you created a system.
A
So you got to be
system
able
that
to
can operate on
that's
its
on
own
its own. So
without
you
you
got to be
being
able
there.
to kill that.
Hold up.
Got to kill that to get to that. You know what I mean?
Hold up, man. We gotta stop right there. Can't just listen, brother. That was dope right there. I hope, I ain't even gonna say I hope. Those that are listening, just listen to what the brother just said. You know what I'm saying? Like he's giving you the information that's going to help you discern. Because you spoke about discernment earlier. So you're highlighting this discernment. And this is why I want you all who are watching us live on YouTube, for the members of the Entrepreneur Chamber Facebook group, to our Caribbean brothers and sisters, whether you're from Cuba, whether you're from Jamaica, you got to pay attention. And more importantly, you got to pay close attention because Sosa, that was just very powerful what you just said, bruh. You know what I'm saying? Like you and I spoke off air and we spoke about some jewels that to that person that's saying it, it may just be genuine and they're just saying it, but to the receiver, it becomes something that sticks. for a lifetime and may regurgitate itself 15, 20 years later. You understand what I'm saying? We just spoke about that. And that was just one of those moments that you just gave the people. So once again, for those that are watching, I'm not rudely interrupting my brother. Trust me. I just want y'all to just let that what he just said soak in, so it don't go in one ear and out the other, because that was powerful. So, just letting people know that thought process, because you just answered, when I asked you, how does one do that? You just gave the answer, So this live will be re-aired as a upload on the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast YouTube channel. So if you missed it, trust me, you'll be able to go back, circle the wagon, and just go down to the minute marker, and then you'll be able to re-listen to what the brother said, because you may have to listen to it more than one time for that information to soak in. And again, you're talking to two brothers that are genuine, authentic. We live it. We're also sharing it. And we want to share it with the Black and Hispanic community, because let me just go back to the statistic in what you said in the beginning of this live. It's projected by 2053 that, I'm just going to put the Latino and the Black community, because we ain't going to be too far off, but the Black community, who right now, wealth, the gap between the Black community and their white counterparts is whatever their amount is, but for Blacks, the wealth is about $30,000. And it's not projected to grow. It's projected to get lower, to the point by 2053, they're projecting it to be at zero. This is what you're going to leave to your children. Zero wealth.
And you know what?
Let's think about that, because real quick, Sos, if it continues at that rate, at zero, at that point, let's call that the baseline. It can either go down to the negative, which means that you'll be passing on debt to your children, not wealth. You'll be passing on more poverty, and it'll be more because cost of living will be higher by then, so it's more debt versus us understanding that is projected and doing something about it now. And that's what the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast, my brother Sos and myself, that's what we're genuine about, and he just outlined it by saying, think about this, y'all, that he's telling you how to do it. Now, again, you can take that on and absorb that information and still do your own independent research and then translate that to how you're going to do that. But I think that was important for the people to understand.
And you know what? I also want to say too, because what, I know some people listening right now saying, man, well, why, how's that happening? We got more financial information than we've ever had in our communities. And I think a lot of that is because, so how's this? So how can we go backwards? We should be going forward now that we got all this information. I think a lot of it is because we're misusing and abusing the information. We do have the information, but information can be misused. And here's the thing about it. If now you have the knowledge, right? So here's the thing. When you're ignorant, you don't have the knowledge, that's actually harmless. But when you have the knowledge, right, and you use it in the wrong way, that's actually double the damage.
Yes.
It's actually double the damage. People don't understand that.
So you misuse it or you abuse it. Yes.
So here's the thing. So when you don't know something, there's no harm there because you don't know. Right? So now when you know, right, your responsibility is to take that knowledge and multiply it. But if you take the knowledge and you misuse it, or you don't quite understand it, right, and so then that information can actually be misused and then actually be double the detriment to you, because now you've taken that information. It's almost like now, because you had the information, now you can blow something up. Because now you know what you're doing, but if you don't do it the right way, you could actually blow the whole building up, right? But if you didn't know, you're never even going to go into that building to try to fix it. So that's what needs to be done, and that's how kind of answering, man, how can this be happening when we have, Earn Your Leisure podcast, we have all these Zig Ziglar and Grant Cardone, and we have all these people that are spreading financial knowledge, and what that's actually, how it could happen. So what we're trying to do here at the Entrepreneur Chamber Podcast, we don't want to be that. We don't want to be the glitz and glamour and try to woo you with material things. No, man, we want to give our whole mission of this podcast is to provide you, the listener, value, empowerment, right? Value and empowerment. So we want to bring you value. And to be honest with you, the biggest value you can bring to anybody is being authentic and being truthful, right? If you up here showing somebody a facade or a mirage, that's right. That's fleeting. That's value that you thought you had, but it's fake. It's fleeting. It's not real value. We're trying to bring true hard value that you could take to and you can see from us by the way we move, by the way we act, by the way we present ourselves, by the way we present this podcast, that we're trying to not only help you, but we're trying to help ourselves. Because if we help, the more we can help ourselves, the more we can help you, and the more you help us, the more we can help you. So it's like kind of goes all hand in hand.
It's 360 degrees, and that's why, to answer the why, is our value proposition that SOSA eloquently came up with. It's to help empower us so we can help empower you. That is 360 degrees. That's what I desire for me. I desire for my community. You know what I'm saying? For those that look like me. And this information is useful to the world, no matter what.
Like every day. That's like, be honest with you, that's my everyday life.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. Like, we're not ones that get caught up in, color lines, because the angle we're coming in at, it's not about color lines. It's about the haves and the have-nots. Like, so in the have-nots, there are black, Chinese, white, brown, tan, yellow, pink, whatever color. It doesn't matter. You're part of that demographic of the have-nots. You understand what I'm saying to you? So, I don't want anybody to get it twisted, Sos, when we say what we say. But yeah, man, I think that's very important. Everything that you're adding on to it, and the value and the authenticity that you and I are building and sharing with those specifically who are watching us live now on YouTube. So episode number 20 of the Entrepreneur Chamber Podcast. And for all of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, whether you're tuning in from Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, from the Virgin Islands, from Turks and Caicos, it's all one blood. We're all the same family. We're all of the same condition, and we're all want better for ourselves and our families. And first, understanding where you are as a employee, how do you generate revenue? As a self-employed, how do you generate revenue? From being a business owner, how do you generate revenue? As being an investor / entrepreneur, how do you generate revenue? The common denominator in all of that is, how do you generate revenue out here? And what do you do with that revenue? Is it going to be squandered? Is it going to be something that you do to build? But understanding, your niche. And once you understand that particular aspect of it, I think it gives you a better pathway to go and seek more knowledge in order to help better yourself, better your condition, and specifically your family and our community as a whole.
Man, there you have it, y'all. I mean, I think that was, I couldn't say any better than my brother just said it. Listen, that's what we're here. That's what we're here to do. This is our goal. This is so you're gonna start noticing some changes in the podcast incrementally. You're gonna start seeing some different things. We're gonna have some more exciting announcements, and as we grow and as new exciting things arise, we're going to share that with everybody. I also want to say that, listen, if there's anybody here that's listening and you want to get into business, right? You want to start your side business, or you want to start a business on the side. I know we don't do this, but I'm putting this out there for anybody who's looking to get into business, who wants to learn business for free. You can contact myself. I have a business called Ambrose and Associates. You can reach out on Facebook, or you could go, or pull out Ambroseandassociates.com. You can pull it up. We're tomorrow, Thursday. We're having opportunity interviews at 6 o'clock. So if anybody wants to tune in, either inbox me or whatever, and we'll help you. I mean, this is something. We're here to help people. We're serious about trying to help people get into business. We're serious about trying to close this wealth gap. We're serious about trying to be the agents of change to try to uplift our people and try to level this playing field that we're all on.
Yeah, man. So, for those that are taking themselves serious, he just basically said to you that Sosa, he just said, he's willing to help you for free, and we're going to have in the description, once the video reloads, we're going to have ambroseandassociates.com. How can you reach out to this brother? You can contact him on Facebook. You can go to Ambrose and Associates on Facebook. You can drop a comment in the video, in the live stream, and we're going to reach back out to you. We're not going to leave you out high and dry. Right. That's right, man. Right. So if you're taking yourself serious, even if it's one person, the brother is willing to lend you his time, his experience, and is willing to share his wealth of knowledge with you, and help you discern and make that right decision for yourself, and help you, create self-value in that in that way of creating generational wealth. Because again, that's what we're striving for, that generational wealth. How do we pass that on to our children? And, for me, I have a slogan, and I shared this before, but it's our children are our connection to the future. So at the end of the day, what are we doing this for? What are you doing this for? Are you, again, doing this for a lifestyle business? You want to show people and be on the internet, which is nothing wrong with that. It's not a false dichotomy. If you want to choose being and have a lifestyle business, then I salute you. You know what I mean? Do what you got to do. You want to floss on social media and show people that, hey, this is what my business has done for me, and I'm able to have a Ferrari, whether you renting it or renting the mansion, you own the mansion, because there's a little bit of everything out there.
Needed. That's right. Everything's needed.
Go for it. Go for it. But we're telling you where we come from. You know what I'm saying? It's the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast. It's from authenticity, and it's from the grit. Or like my man Sos like to always say, the co-host always says, man, gritty, tough as nails, man. That's where we coming from. You know what I'm saying? And we like to share that with you. So before we end this live stream, Sos, is there anything else you want to share with our viewers who are watching us now live on YouTube?
No, other than listen, I'm excited for some of the new things that we got coming down the pipe. I'm excited about this new focus that we're trying to really focus. We're trying to penetrate people, man. We're trying to, like a perfect,
balls.
Right. Like my perfect dream, is that, man, that we start building a society, man, where it's a one hand back to push somebody up and one hand up so somebody's pushing you up. So, you're grabbing somebody up with you and someone's grabbing so you can come up with them. And if we could build a society like that, man, I think we'll all be better for it. I think there'll be a lot less shootings, a lot less crime, a lot less everything, if we could find a way to kind of all work together and kind of help each other and want to see someone succeed. Because sometimes, there's a lot of things that ail our communities, and that's another conversation for another day. But it's all about, man, support and helping one another. And that's certainly what we do. So again, that's Ambrose and Associates. That's AMBROS, no E at the end, right? Just AMBROS. Tap in, man. More than willing to help anybody. Man, if you're trying to get into or trying to learn about business, man, I think we create an environment that's perfect for learning and perfect for, kind of tipping your toe, sticking your toe in that water a little bit. So I'm just thankful for my co-host, my brother. I love being on this journey with this brother. We do this for the love, man. This is basically what we do this for. And so I there's nobody else that I would love to be on this journey with, and I certainly appreciate you, brother, giving you your salute. And as always, to our Entrepreneur Chamber podcast, our members, our listeners, our constituents, everyone involved, as always, be on the lookout for some new and exciting information. But as always, continue to please help empower us so we can help empower you.
Yes, and that was so well articulated, Sos, in our closing remarks. And in my closing remarks, I just want to kind of go back to what you said, as far as the, pulling one up as you're being pulled up, and the discernment there. And this is why you want to reach out to Ambrose and Associates to help you with this discernment. That has to be willing participants, because if somebody's trying to pull you up, and then on the other end, you're trying to pull that person up, but they're counterweighting you, trying to pull you back down, it may be time to let that person hand go and then grab the hand of somebody else who's trying to be
Right
pulled
there.
up. You know what I'm
Right
saying?
there. Let
And
that hand go.
that's what makes this whole thing so great, as far as you and I both, man, because it's that determined idea that you spark and that you bring up, and we build and we add on the value to each other. So it's in the same circumstance. It can happen from me to, he says, oh, you know what? That was something, a great thought, and I have something to add on to that. And that's what he just did. When he just said what he said, it just sparked something in me that made me just say, you know what? I want to add on to that. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And that's what that genuineness is, brother. It's about that adding on and creating value to each other. That if something that I may not think about, guess what? When I build with SOS, when I build with like my
Right.
like CIYs and under and peace to the God knowledge, this is what we do. So to
Listen,
SOS overall point, it's about the building. How do we build from that projection of being at 0 by 2053 and going in the other direction and building and adding on? So
listen, in life, you're either adding on or you subtracting.
there you
Period.
go. There you
Period.
go.
You're either adding on or you're subtracting. Period.
There you go.
So,
There
do
you
you want
go,
to be the
Sos.
person that's adding on, or you want to be the person that's subtracting, sucking the life out of it?
There you go.
You want to be
Yes,
putting life
sir.
in it? You want to be pouring life into people, or you want to be the blood sucker? You want to be the one that's pouring? You want to be the one that's pouring, or the one
Yeah.
that's getting poured? You know what I mean? So, like,
Hey,
what
listen, Sos. Being that you brought that up, it just made me think of, and this is my overall favorite artist out of all music genre, is Bob Marley, and he has a song called "Who the Cat Fit." So it's who the cat fit, let them wear it. And in that song, he speaks about, in life there's going to be leeches, and there's
Yup,
going to be bloodsuckers, and guess
yup.
what? That's their mission.
That's right.
They're
That's
on
right.
their assignment. You can't be
That's right.
mad at them because
That's
that's
right.
their assignment.
That's right.
So, but which one are you going to be? You have an opportunity to not be that and change that. So, yeah, man, help empower us so we can help empower you. Like my big bro So said, and I'm going to hit you with what we always say in our closing remarks is peace
Peace,
all
all.
and be victorious. And check this out. You got follow us. You got Cap OG. Can you just tell them how they can reach out to you on social media one more time?
Yeah, on on Instagram is cap 0G on Instagram. Our business page is on there. You can
Yes.
reach out to Ambrose and Associates on Facebook. Tony Ambrose, that's my real name. You can reach out, inbox me on either one. You can DM me, whatever you want to do. Even if you just want to kick it, you got ideas, you just want to. I'm 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 available at all times. Because this fight ain't, this ain't like this is a marathon fight. This ain't a quick,
Right.
little 1 or 2 round fight. This is a
That's
long
right.
drag
That's
out
right.
battle. That I've committed to be in this fight. And I think that if we all work together, it can be done. There's a saying that says a rising tide raises all boats. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, my brother IJUST and I, we're trying to be part of that rising tide that can raise all boats.
Peace all and be victorious. Thank you for tuning in to the Entrepreneur Chamber podcast. This is episode 20. Co-host Sosa, co-host IJUST. You can reach me at Winston IJUST McIntosh on all social media platforms. You can reach us at Entrepreneur Chamber on all social media platforms, or Entrepreneur Chamber podcast, especially on Facebook. Join our group. Make
Join our
sure that you
crew.
like, make sure that you comment, make sure that you subscribe. Peace all and be
Peace.
victorious.
Peace.